Hey guys, I found out that you guys got a colloquium this Wednesday, so I thought I'd make a quick video on neuroanatomy. Sorry if the quality is bad, filming my iPhone and using my earphones as a mic. Okay, so I'm just gonna go over the things really quickly. The first video is gonna be really basic, it's just gonna show you the outside aspect of the brain. Oh, with my videos, there's no need to take any notes. I'm gonna just skim through. Well, I'm just gonna explain everything, and then once I explain everything, the last like 5 minutes or so of the video, I'm gonna summarize everything that I've just spoke about or I explained. So you don't have to take your notes during the video. Just chill, relax, and just watch the video. Don't take notes, and then the last 5 minutes I'll explain everything, and then you can watch the 5 minutes and write notes if you want. And if you watch the video already, you don't have to watch the whole video again. You can just watch the last 5 minutes because that will explain everything. Anyways, so this is the first video, and it's talking about the brain, the outside part of the brain. So we can look at the lobes of the brain. So here you can see that you see 4 lobes, but the brain has actually got 6 lobes. It's got the frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital lobe. But along with these lobes, you have the insular and also the limbic lobe. So, what I want to talk to you about today is just how to kind of remember these lobes in a way. Because the thing is, sometimes with people learning neuroanatomy, when they get asked a question, like for instance, what's the frontal lobe made out of? Straight away you just say the superior, middle, and inferior frontal gyrus. But you forget some other gyri, and the reason for that is maybe because you don't look at the whole of the brain. Anyways, this is what I'll explain to you what I mean. So when I say gyrus, what does it mean? Well, your brain isn't a smooth surface. It's got peak and trough. So at the top, you have the gyrus or gyri, plural, and sulcus at the bottom. So the gyri, how do we know where the frontal lobe is? Well, it's bordered by the central sulcus here. So the central sulcus divides the frontal and the parietal. So what is the surface, or what is the lobes, the gyri of the frontal lobe? Well, how do we look at it? We look at firstly the lateral aspect of it. So right now we're looking at the lateral aspect. After we look at the medial aspect, and then we will look at the inferior surface. So if you divide in your mind that the frontal lobe has these 3 surfaces, the lateral, the inferior one, and then the medial side, then you won't forget any gyri, because you will say the frontal gyrus is made up of, on the lateral aspect, the precentral gyrus, so pre because it's in front of the central sulcus, and I'll draw it in red because it's the motor cortex. And then you have the superior, so here is going to be the superior frontal gyrus, the middle frontal gyrus, and the inferior frontal gyrus. I want you to take note that in the inferior gyrus, sorry if I'm going quick, but this is video so you can rewind it anyways. So this is the inferior frontal gyrus. I want you to take note that there's something called the opercular part, or the operculum. And the reason for this is because it's going to cover a structure called the insula. And why I'm explaining this. Okay, let me just write to you firstly the lateral surface of the frontal. So what do we have? The precentral gyrus. We had the superior, middle, and inferior frontal gyrus. Yeah, this is just the beginning video. It's the basic part. Anyways, your colloquium's on Wednesday, so I guess you guys already know this one. So superior, middle, and inferior frontal gyrus, but on the inferior is where you have the operculum, and it covers the insula. Yeah. Okay. So why am I explaining the insula and saying that the operculum is covering it? Because if you look at this picture here, you have operculum for the parietal lobe, the frontal lobe, and the orbital lobe. The orbital operculum. So what it is that the operculum is like a covering of the insula. If you move apart this, this is lateral sulcus. If you move apart the lateral sulcus, you'll see underneath the operculum, you'll find the insula. And it's good to know the insula is there, is because later on when I show you the inside of the brain, we're going to look at cross sections. So we're going to cut the brain and look at cross sections. So if I have a cross section over here, you'll see the insula because the insula is here. Yeah. But if you have a cross section over here, you don't expect to see the insula. So just understanding where the operculum is here, when you cut the brain, you realize where you are. So if you do see insula, you know that you're over here, this region of the brain. Yeah, and if you have cut here, you will have the insula. Okay, so the next part that I will describe, so I'll describe to you the lateral part, is going to be the inferior. So the inferior aspect. Inferior aspect, you can see that this is called the straight gyrus, and it's good to know that where is it situated. So this here is the olfactory tract. So that's the first cranial nerve. You can see. So the straight gyrus is medial to it. Yeah, it's medial to it. And then lateral to it, you'll find the orbital gyri. It's just the orbital part. Why? Because it sits on top of the eye, because the eye is there. Yeah. So we can say, bring back this, inferior part is made of what? Straight gyrus and the orbital gyri. Yeah. Okay, now we're looking at the medial part. So what's the medial part looking like? Well, as I explained to you already, how do we divide the frontal and the parietal? It's by the central sulcus. So if we look at the medial aspect, we find the central sulcus over here. This is the central sulcus, so we already know that behind it here is going to be parietal, and in front of it is going to be the frontal. You can see this is called the paracentral. This is the paracentral lobule. Oh, there it is, paracentral lobule. So paracentral lobule, you can see it's surrounding the central sulcus. So is this part of the frontal lobe or the parietal lobe? Well, how do you know? Divide it into two. This is the anterior part of the paracentral lobule, and that's the frontal. The posterior part is going to be the parietal. So you can divide it into two. The anterior part of the paracentral lobule is the frontal lobe, along with, here it says the medial frontal gyrus. So it's the medial aspect, so the medial frontal gyrus. Some books they say that this is the superior frontal gyrus, but if you want to be even more specific, because this is the medial side of the brain, you can call this the medial frontal gyrus. Okay, just to let you know, this here is called the corpus callosum. It is not a gyrus. What is the corpus callosum? Because the brain, there's two hemispheres. The corpus callosum is the part that links the two hemispheres. Okay, and on top of it, or surrounding it, should I say, is the cingulate gyrus. Here it is, cingulate gyrus. So cingulate gyrus is around it. The thing is about cingulate gyrus is it's not actually part of the frontal lobe. The cingulate gyrus is part of the limbic system. Yeah. So the limbic system, not frontal lobe. So, or some people say that is part of the frontal lobe. So what am I going to write for the medial aspect? We had what? The anterior part of the paracentral gyrus. Medial frontal gyrus. And I'm putting brackets cingulate gyrus because you say it is, but really it's actually the part of the limbic system, limbic lobe. Yeah, I'll just say it's limbic system. Yeah. Okay, so why did I just mention this? You lot probably already know the frontal lobe, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how to remember it by remembering the different sides. So you look at the different surfaces, the lateral, inferior, and medial. Yeah? So once you do that and you have this system in your mind, you can apply this system into the other lobes. So as I said, frontal, this is the parietal now. So same way with the parietal, we can look at the lateral side and the medial side, which is over here. There's not going to be an underside, there's no inferior side because it's going to be covered, yeah, by the temporal lobe. But let's look at what we can find in the parietal lobe. So parietal lobe, we have the postcentral gyrus, and I'll draw in blue because is for sensory. The somatosensory cortex is found there. Yeah. Then you have the superior parietal. You see it says lobule because it's not, because it's just a part like this. Yeah. And this is the inferior parietal sulcus dividing the superior lobule and the inferior parietal lobule. Take note, inferior parietal lobule gives you the supramarginal gyrus and the angular gyrus. Okay, and how do you divide the parietal lobe and the occipital lobe? You have this sulcus here. It's called the parietal occipital sulcus. You divide the parietal and the occipital lobe. Okay, just like with the central gyrus, you have a pre-central gyrus and a post-central gyrus. Here, this behind it you have is called the cuneus, and in front of it is called a precuneus. So precuneus in front, cuneus behind. But obviously cuneus is the occipital lobe. But we're talking about the parietal lobe, so I'm going to cover that. So this part is what we're looking at. What do we find? We find the precuneus on the medial side, and what else? Obviously the posterior part of the paracentral lobule. Now that's the medial side. Oh, we spoke about the lateral side already, and there's no underside. Okay, so that's the parietal lobe. Take note that the inferior parietal lobule has these two gyri. Okay. Temporal lobe on the other hand. Okay, temporal lobe, it's here. You can see the superior, middle, and inferior gyri. With the superior, middle, and inferior gyri, how is it separated from the rest of the lobes? You have this sulcus here. It's called the lateral sulcus. Okay, the lateral sulcus. With the lateral sulcus, like the medial aspect of it. So if you just like look on the inner aspect, you can find something called the transverse temporal gyrus, or the gyrus of Heschel. Why am I mentioning this? Because it's important for hearing. So when you're listening, it's going to go to what lobe? It's going to go to temporal lobe. What gyrus? The transverse temporal gyrus. Okay, so just take note of that. So it's not just only the superior, middle, and inferior, but you have the Heschel gyrus or transverse temporal gyrus. Yeah. So lateral aspect, what's left? Obviously the underside. So the inferior aspect now. So looking at the inferior aspect, what do you find? We're going to see the occipital temporal gyrus here. Yeah. Then you'll okay. This picture is confusing, so I want to find a nicer picture for you guys. So if you look on here, you see what I mentioned before here. So this is where we left off, inferior temporal gyrus. So occipital temporal gyrus. Here you have the parahippocampal gyrus and the uncus. See, these two are actually not part of the temporal lobe. What are they part of? They're not part of the temporal lobe. They're part of the limbic system. Yeah? So the limbic system is what it's part of. So don't get confused and say that they are part of the temporal. But if because it's a colloquium and you're guys gonna like have to show the thing, show the brain, you just have to remember that uncus is the most medial part. Then the next one, gyrus, is going to be parahippocampal. Then the next one is going to be the occipital temporalis. You don't have to mention, oh, no, this is not part of temporal lobe or whatnot. I'm just giving you an idea, because when we do the limbic system, you'll see these names come up, and then you should know and understand that it's not part of the temporal lobe. Okay, so temporal lobe, we looked at that. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the occipital lobe. So the occipital lobe, we described already how the occipital lobe is divided by the parietal occipital sulcus from the parietal lobe. That's an immediate aspect. So how do you divide it on this lateral aspect? Well, the thing is that if you can see, this is a line. What happens is there's a continuation of this line on the lateral side, and then where does this line reach? It reaches the precipitatal notch. Sorry. So this imaginary line shows here divides the occipital from the parietal and the temporal lobe. So, what can we say about the occipital lobe? Well, the occipital lobe, what you have to understand is basically it's broken up into two things. By what though? This part here is called the calcarine sulcus. So it's called the calcarine sulcus. Calcarine sulcus because it looks like a chicken foot. So that's the shape of the sulcus. And then this sulcus, or you can say it looks like a Y shape, but it's called calcarine because it looks like a chicken foot. Apparently, anyways. That's what my teacher said once. So above it, you can see the cuneus, and below it, you see something called the lingual gyrus, which is here. You can see it's below the structure, the calcarine, and then above it is the cuneus. So this is how you know the occipital lobe. So the calcarine sulcus, there's actually importance in it because when you learn about how we take visual images, so when we take so how we see basically, it will go towards there's a pathway which I'll explain later on, and it goes to here, the calcarine sulcus. It has a V1 area, and this area is where most of the visual input goes into. So the calcarine sulcus is where the V1 area is concentrated. Okay, so I've described all the frontal, parietal, temporal lobe and occipital lobe. I also want to talk about two areas actually, which you'll be asked in your colloquium. The area is called, let me just write it here, the Broca's area, Broca area, and the Wernicke area. So what are these two? Well, the Broca area is for the production of speech. So what this means is that if this area is damaged, then I can understand what I want to say, but then I can't say what I'm thinking. So I can like form a sentence in my head, but when it comes out as just random gibberish. It won't even be words. The Wernicke area, on the other hand, is basically if someone's talking to you, so it's the understanding of speech. So the way that I said about the Broca area, I can think what I want to say, but I can't say it. In this Wernicke area, I don't understand the speech. So if someone's talking, I do not understand what's going on. And the same way is if I'm talking, I won't be able to produce, I won't be able to think of what I want to say. If I do say some stuff, it'll come out as random words, but it won't have like a structure to it. So where do you find these areas? Okay, so the areas that you find it, the Broca's area is going to be found here. So you see this triangular part and the operculum or the frontal lobe. So where can you say you find it? In the inferior frontal gyrus. So that's where it's located, in the inferior frontal gyrus. Okay, so then where is the Wernicke area going to be found? Okay, so the Wernicke area is going to be found on the temporal lobe. What part? The superior temporal gyrus. So on the superior temporal gyrus is where you're going to find the Wernicke area. So in your exam, they will ask you, okay, where is the Wernicke area going to be situated? And you say the superior temporal gyrus. They ask you where the Broca's area, and you say the inferior frontal gyrus. And the easiest way to remember which one is for speech and which one is to understand the speech, well, how I like to remember it is that the Broca's area is near the mouth. It's more anterior, so it's nearer the mouth. So this is the one when it's damaged, then I can't speak. I can't produce the speech.